information. So no ethnicity, no race. It's inconsequential to what you're trying to do. Right? So again, the SS5FS. Once your passport application is successfully approved and you go in and you've requested a copy of the application, which will come in the certified format, you take copies of that, and that is what you use to update your your social security application. That way you're taking control of it. All right. And again, as we stated, it talks about that certificate of citizenship. So let's go look at the State Department's website. It talks about certificates of non-citizen nationality, which is what we are converting to, right? Which is what we are converting to. What they talk about in this section can also be found under 8 USC 1452. There are multiple ways to go in and obtain a certificate of non-citizen nationality. You can go through your state attorney general, as you can see, right? It says application to state attorney general. So a person who claims to have derived citizenship through naturalization, right, may apply to the AG for a certificate of citizenship. Upon proof, right, you will be required to take an oath. Such individuals shall be furnished by the AG with their certificate of citizenship, but only if such individual is at the time within the United States. B, application to the Secretary of State. This is the process we're doing, right? We are applying through the Secretary of State through our passport process. It states that as defined by the Immigration and Nationality Act, all U.S. citizens are nationals, but only a relatively small number of persons acquire nationality without becoming a citizen. Section 101 defines the term national as a person on permanent allegiance to a state. Right? Section 101 of the INA defines the term national, which is what we are, as a person on permanent allegiance to a state. It provides that the term national of the United States includes all citizens as well as persons who, though not citizens of the United States, owe permanent allegiance to the United States, which are non-citizen nationals. Right? It then goes on to state, right? As the department has received few requests, there is no justification for the creation of a non-citizen national certificate. So it's explicitly telling you that there is no distinction on your card or on your book, right? Once you update your status, it's explicitly telling you this right here. Designing a separate document that includes anti-fraud mechanisms was seen as an inefficient expenditure of resources. Therefore, the department determined that those who would be eligible for such certificate may instead apply for a passport that would delineate and certify their status as a citizen, but not as a national, but not a citizen of the United States. Right? Then it tells you the exact process. If a person believes he or she is eligible under the law as a non-citizen national, he or she may apply for a passport at any agency. When applying, you must execute a DS-11 and show proof of your status as well as your identity. All right? So as we move forward, keep that in mind. We're going to go in and we're going to look at that again. So all U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the union are classified as property and franchisees of the federal government and as an individual entity. Right? This is why we want to go in and correct that status. Because you are seen as an individual business. Right? That is also proven in the law. So we go in and look at Title 15, right? Under trade shows, under exports, right? Keep that in mind. This is 15 U.S. Code subchapter 3 under export enhancement, right? Exports, fair trade. Under 4724, the term United States business means a United States citizen, right? So if you're still classifying yourself a citizen, when you go in and you fill out your application and they ask you, are you a citizen, yes or no, and you're still saying yes, then you're classified as an entity. So when someone looks at you crazy and when you tell them that you're not a citizen, right, then I mean, are you a walking business? No, you're not. But by definition, a citizen is classified as a business. And it's also classified as a vessel. The term vessel of the United States means any citizen thereof, or any corporation created by or under the laws of the United States. So it's showing you that uh, being a citizen means that you are on the same level with the United States, right? Meaning you are a corporation right along with them, right? And these are presumptions that we want to go in and rebut. We want to rebut the presumption of being a citizen, right? Because that we are not. And so we want to make sure that when we go in and correct our status, that we complete this process the correct way, right? So when you go in schools, courthouses, offices, and you see that American flag with the yellow fringe, the yellow eagle on top of it, it's letting you know that you are in the quote unquote federal area. Those are the only areas that are subject to repossession, to mortgage foreclosure, to seizures from the government, right? Because those are agencies or those are entities controlled by the federal government. The government recognizes two distinct classes of citizens: a state national and a federal citizen. A state national is also called a de jure or Republican citizen, who is an individual whose inalienable rights are recognized, secured, and protected by the state constitution, right? Against state actions and against federal intrusion by the Constitution for the United States of America. A federal citizen, also called the 14th Amendment citizen, a citizen of the United States, right, has civil rights that are almost equal to natural rights that state citizens have, right? These are rights created by Congress that can be taken away, as we will briefly discuss, right? Federal citizens are subjects of Congress under their protection as a resident of the state, because you are not a resident as well. And as we went in to see, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 defines the incorporated United States, the ships, the dockyards, the other needful buildings. Right? So when you go in and and you're looking at properties that are owned by banks, that are real estate owned. The only properties that you should see owned by a Chase, a Wells Fargo, a PNC, a Navy Federal, or McDonald's, banks, parking lots, empty business buildings and offices. Those are the only areas that they control. They don't control the place where you lay your head at every night or the vehicle that you drive in, right? Because you are not in that federal area. Again, if you don't see that gold fringe in that flag, you're not in the federal area. Those are the only areas mandated by the United States government, right? The individual states may not deny to these persons, right? Talking about the federal citizens, any federal privileges or immunities that Congress has granted them. This class of citizen is a federal citizen under international law. As a result, they do not have those inalienable common rights recognized and secured that state nationals have, right? Or allodial or absolute rights to property, the rights to inheritance, will, trust, estate, the right to work and contract, and the right to travel, among others, right? State nationals are bound and protected by all aspects of the Constitution. So once you go in and you update your status correctly, the the only piece of the Constitution that matters to you are the Bill of Rights, the articles, and the Bill of Rights. Everything else is inconsequential to you as a state national. All right, like the founding fathers intended, and like we were taught in school what citizenship meant or what we thought it meant. Federal citizens have made further agreements with the government and are bound by these agreements, right? Rights are considered gifts from the Creator. Rights cannot be disturbed by acts of man, aka acts of government. Some of these rights were considered important enough to be stated to be secured from federal encroachment in the Bill of Rights, right? Upon the theory that at one point the government, left to its own devices without restriction, could and would use man-made law to defeat the liberty that this republic was intended to represent, right? So, as we talked about, rights are gifts from the Creator. So, a right is not a privilege. A right cannot be taken away. But let's go in and see how the government tried to do just that, right? So, when we go in and look at original definitions, right? I always recommend that when you look at definitions of terms, you always go in and look at a Black Law Dictionary definition, right? So either from the sixth edition or the seventh edition. But that is exactly what you want to go in and do and look up. But we're gonna go in and I want to show you the definition of license, right? Because I believe that this definition is very it goes to show us exactly how the government went in and stripped these rights away from us. So this is Black Laws Dictionary 6th edition that you're looking at. The definition of license is a personal privilege to do some particular act on land without possessing any estate or interest therein, and is revocable at the will of the licenser and is not assignable. License is the permission by competent authority to do an act which without permission would be illegal, a trespass, a tort, or otherwise not allowable. As we know in the Constitution, in the Declaration of Human Rights, it gives us our inalienable right to travel, as we've seen without the need for a license. However, this definition is stating that a license is a personal privilege, right? It's a permit granted by an appropriate government body to pursue some occupation, all right, or to carry on some business to regulation under police power. This is talking about a driver's license, any type of license, right? It says, I'll see also mirror license, certificate, exclusive, marriage, permit. A license is not a contract between the state and the licensee, but a mere permit. Neither is it property or a property right. Right? So do you see how they went in and went in and convoluted the definition and the meanings of these things? They went in and attempted to convert a right into a privilege. Right? Rights are considered gifts from our Creator. They cannot be disturbed by man. Right? They cannot be disturbed by man. The presumption of a federal citizen is wildly important, right? Federal citizens are presumed to be operating in the jurisdiction of commercial law, right? Because that is the jurisdiction of their creator, Congress. Keep in mind that definition of the 4 USC 110, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. This is evidenced by the existence of various contracts and the use of negotiable instruments. Under common law, your intent is important. In the court of contract, the only thing that matters is that you live up to the letter of the contract. This is why when contracts are unconscionable, we have those rights to rescind within equity, right? Because you have contracts with Congress, you cannot use the Constitution or Bill of Rights as a defense because it is irrelevant to the contract. This is why we update our nationality so we can have that proof of citizenship. As previously stated, the contract says you will obey every statute passed by Congress. A federal citizen does not have access to common law. So you want to go in to get your status updated as soon as possible and put the parties on notice, right? If one does not understand the different classifications of citizenship, then you will tend to operate in other jurisdictions, right? Everything begins with your status, and you must understand what your true proper status is. At law, your status is always the first issue because your status determines your capacities of operations, of dealing with rights, recourses, and legal matters in society. I, private man of competent age, can testify in these matters, right? You are private, you are of competent age, you know exactly what it is you are attempting to do. It is important of the people of this land, the indigenous people, which are us, to let any court know that we are national citizens. At that moment, courts will cease to have any sort of jurisdiction over you. They only have jurisdiction over over citizens. This is why our court starts on paper. When we want to sue someone, we attempt to settle with them in the private and only